This particular one, if you go on today's Moodle page to the exercises, what you'll need to download, we're using exercise 2, the sports tables information. And if you unzip it, it'll create a folder. Let's go back to there. The folder itself is called Game Day Calls Info. Just redesigned it. Here's what I'm giving to you. First of all, there's a Word document that's got all of your information inside of it. And what I'm giving you is different times these baseball games are happening and what day they're happening, who's playing, and also different commentator predictions. And so you've got Mike Sherman, who's working at the Oklahoman, predicts these scores for it. Mary Byrne predicts this. So this is the kind of thing where you've got two different sets of data. How can you showcase the who's playing and when with who's making a prediction and what they're saying about it? And this is where a table comes in handy. Here's our final result that we're going to be working towards. As far as the table goes, you can see all of the information, and this is a lot easier to read. You can figure out how the information is grouped together. Who says what about which game? So Mike Sherman predicts the Yankees, which are playing at this time, will have this score. Who's going to win? The Rockies are going to win at this time for this score. And you'll do the same for each other person. Also, some other things we've done, we're going to add their picture. We're going to use a little clipping mask to clip that out. And we're going to rotate the text and use the text, format the text in a different way. To create a table in InDesign, there's a couple of things to think about and to look at. First of all, you have to treat it kind of like a super text box. All right, so what I'm going to do is step through the information. You may want to look on with somebody else, Anna. Yes. Step through the information and give you the parts of it. Let's see. We'll go to File, Create a New Document. The size of this document won't be your standard size. We're going to do it 7 by 4. It's just going to be one page, so we're not going to worry about facing pages. And the margins will be 0.25 on all sides. 0.25 inches. And we'll say OK. I will give you a little bit of flexibility and freedom for how you want to format your sports table. You can change a few things around as long as everything fits within this area. So you may find that you have to make things bigger or smaller or move things around as you work with it. First thing to know about working with tables is you have a tables palette that you can have open in addition to the other information that's up here. I don't have it created yet. To find this palette, you can go to Window, type in Tables, and there's your Tables palette right here. We're going to be using this to do some formatting a little bit later on. I'll place it over here. To make a table, everything has to be placed in its own frame. Tables are placed in a type frame. So we're going to choose our Type tool, draw off a type box. I've got my insertion point. And so to insert a table, at the very top we've got a drop-down menu. And this is where I can insert the table that I need. The first thing it's going to ask you is what size do you want to make it? And most spreadsheet tables are given in rows and columns. For what we're creating, we're just going to use a simple body of rows and columns. We're not going to worry about a header or a footer. Those are kind of special things. I've rarely had to use those. Most of everything I've done is just a simple row and column. You can increase it or decrease it as necessary. For our project, we're going to make it 5 by 5 and say OK. And so this is the default table that will show up. It's usually going to span the entire width of your text box that you have. It'll be black lines with a transparent or a white inside. Since it's inside of the type box, I can move the type box around and place it wherever is necessary. I can actually continue typing underneath it as I need. We're not going to worry about having to do that. Also, I can resize my type box, and you can see it still shows up and stays inside of it, regardless of the size that I have for it. However, if I make it smaller like this, you can see it will close up this way. So make sure your type or your text box is at least tall enough to hold it. the width of it will be completely independent. Pretty cool. If you need to change the size of your cells, always use your type tool to do this. You can't necessarily do it with your selection tools. The type tool will allow you to either click on a row height or width and change it up. And notice that it's only affecting the one to the left of it. Everything else will be pushed to the side proportionally. So if I needed it to be something like that, that's how I could do it. Let's undo that. Same way for the height of these cells. I can click on the rows and change the height of each row with this. So that's the basics of it. The second thing for making a selection, if I click inside of a cell, I can either highlight a row or I can highlight an entire column or everything from here. Again, I'm using my type tool to be able to do this. If I wanted to quickly highlight an entire row, you can move your cursor to the top of it. You see how you got the down arrow? You can click on that row, or excuse me, that column, or even that row, and it will automatically select those. Or if you click on the edge, it'll select the whole thing. So those are quick and simple ways of selecting it, moving things around. But here's how to quickly format the row that we want. If I have something selected and I want to affect just this one cell, it works a lot like any other kind of editing. I can look at the top and I got a fill color, I've got a stroke color, I've got my different sizes, I've even got some formatting options for the type that's inside of it. I could start clicking and typing inside of this and doing that as well. If I wanted to change the background color, let's say I selected just the cell, I can highlight it here. You can see the background is selected. If I highlight it again and change the stroke color, we'll make that say blue. You can see how that one cell is just selected. However, this gets tricky once you start selecting multiple cells. Let's undo what I did. Let's actually get rid of my type inside of it. If I select multiple cells and I change the fill color, of course it'll change all of them that are inside of there. But if I go to change the stroke color, this may give you some different results. Let's give it one that we can actually see. Instead of red, let's make it blue. Notice now the inside is still black and the outside is still blue. Why did it do that?
Because it's applying the stroke to your selection, not the cells individually inside the selection.
Sort of, yeah. I've got them all selected. When you say selection, pay attention to this box right here. Notice that there's a blue line going around the outside. There's also some lines on the inside. If I click on those, they become highlighted blue as well. Now with those highlighted, I can actually change the color of it and the insides are changed up. If I was to deselect, say, the right and left side, now the insides or the top and the left would only be selected, and I can change those colors and only those bits would be affected. Does that make sense? So as you select them, be aware of what's up here and what's actually being affected, and that's where you can change those up. Ooh, that looks horrible. It's going to do everything that I've done. What I want to do is I want to alternate the colors. I want this to be one shade of blue, so I can make it blue, and I want the next, skip over a row, make the next one blue. Highlight it, make it blue as well. Since I've only got a few rows, this would actually be easy to do. But if I'm using a spreadsheet that's got 100 rows, it would take forever to have to highlight every other row, change the color, and redo it. Here's a faster way of doing it. I'm going to undo. I've got my insertion point at the top, so I've got my row selected. We can open up the table options or the table setup. And this will give me even more control over the look and feel of the entire table. Things like changing the border color or the border width for everything. I can quickly do that here for this one. Now let's undo, go back. What I want to change is the fill color. Under fills, one of the options is I can have an alternating pattern. Every other row can be filled in with something, or second row, or even every other column. If I selected this one, I've got preview turned on, you can see what it's automatically doing. Pretty cool? It's automatically filling in those rows as necessary. And I can change the color of it right here. We'll make it that dark blue. And it's automatically set to 20%. This is what our instructions would say. Say OK to that. and that's what I have. So if I wanted to automatically fill and create and redo things, the table options is the next thing that you would want to do. If I wanted to add on different bits, I can go to table, I can insert more rows. Let's say I added 3 more rows to it. We'll add below it. You can see it automatically added the 3 rows and it did the alternating color scheme that I wanted to go with it. We're going to keep it like this. Next thing, changing up those line weights. We want ours to have a unique line weight. Notice how on the inside I've got thin lines, I've got no lines on the edges, and on the top and bottom I've got some thicker lines. I can do this very quickly by selecting everything. And the first thing I'll do is highlight everything, click and drag to top to the bottom, select all the lines, so everything that's on here are selected, and we're going to set their stroke to be 0.5 point. So everything's a nice thin line. With everything still selected, I can select just the left and the right hand side at the top. So I'm going to deselect these. See how everything else is blue? The left and the right hand side, I can set that to 0. The next one, the top and the bottom, or excuse me, just the top. So I'll deselect those and select the top. Will be set to 3 point. And then the bottom one, what does it need to be? 1 point. Now when I deselect it, check out my cells that I have from here. Pretty cool, right? Very quickly, very easily, I was able to format all of the lines. I can build these tables in something like Illustrator. It would take me a very long time to have to individually select all the lines, make sure they're the correct sizes, and then line up all of the type that's inside, or all the squares that are inside of it. I wouldn't have the same control of type as I would in InDesign. So if you're making a table, InDesign would be the best place to make a table for these things. All right, second page of our instructions. Actually inserting the data and typing things out. On the far left-hand side is where we're going to have the individual announcers, and the remaining ones on the right is where we're going to have the information for this. You can see the styles that I've placed everything in, so we're using Myriad and Minion on different sizes. And this is where we can pull our information from the Word document that we have. So let's say we got Mike Sherman. I'll copy him over. Mike is going to go in this top corner, paste him in, hit return. Notice that when I hit return, it automatically adjusted the height of that, and he's working for the Oklahoman. What's his formatting? Myriad, Pro Bold Condensed, and at 12 point. So we're good to go for that. Oklahoman. 10-point italic. So there he is for this one. The best thing about this is they're all formatted the same way. So if I get one done, I can copy it and paste it into here. Keeps the same formatting, and then it's simply a matter of copying over the next person's name. So Mary, copy her name, paste it on top of the second Mike Sherman, automatically formatted. USA Today, copy it over the second Oklahoman, automatically formatted. Pretty cool? So that's how you can work a lot quickly. You don't have to reformat everything that we have. The next thing is to format the size and placement of the cells. I won't make y'all watch me do the whole thing, whole design for everyone. I'll just do the first couple of them. Like I said, you can click on the individual, use your type tool, click on the individual width of a cell, and you can move it to match the edge. Another way, if you wanted it to be a specific size, is to use your table palette. I can highlight the tables that I want. If I want those to be a specific size, here it is down here. I want it to be, in this case, either at least or exactly a certain size. We'll set it at least 1 inch. This would be the height of it, and this would be the width of it. I want the width of it to be at least 1 inch. I found a typo in my instructions. On 6, I have in parentheses ND, just forget about the ND. When I hit return, you can see now they're all 1 inch wide. The rest of this, I can move it over to match up for this one. As I type inside of it, if I want my scores and everything to be centered, I can highlight all of these. I have the same text formatting at the top. I can make them centered, and all of the type will automatically be centered as well. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Thank you. All right. Validation is always good for me. So as far as determining the size of it, this last one you will need to make a slightly larger. We can adjust that as necessary once you create your own for what you're working with. Second thing, I want to add the information inside of here. I won't make y'all watch me add the information. I will just copy it over. So the Yankees, Mets, all of their information will be set to here. Copy it, paste it, as necessary. Make sure your information lines up with the correct information from here. So Mike Sherman's predictions, the Yankees, here's his prediction. For the Rockies, who's going to win for the Tigers for each one. Flipping over to the next page, adding the announcer, oops, excuse me, I think I skipped over one thing. Adding the game day information, line the center, line the width. I did skip over one bit. We need to add some space off to the left-hand side to place their picture inside of it. Notice how Mike Sherman and all the others are spaced over about a ½ inch. From here, if we selected this column, another thing you can do in your palette is to give it a little bit of spacing. The spacing is down here. How much space from the top, left, right, and the bottom side of it. It's unlinked, so if I was to increase the amount of space on the left-hand side of the cell, you can see it'll push it off to the side. If I wanted to have more space at the top of each cell, I could increase it this way. Notice that they'll all increase proportionally from there. Did I lose everybody on that? Make sense? Okay. I want to push it over at least ½ inch. That's a little bit too much. Right there, ½ inch. And that'll give me some space to add their picture off to the side. Now we can get into the fun part. I'm going to move this down. At the top, this is where we're going to add Blue Jays, Rockies, and where and when they're playing each day. To create this type of text, the text is going off at an angle, but it's lined up along this edge. Here's the trick to do that. I'll make a text box. I'll copy over the information. You guys would type it out and format it as necessary. If I rotated it at 45 degrees, here's what it looks like. It gives me the text, but it doesn't line up along this edge. What I need to do is I need to change the shape of my text box, and I can do that using my direct selection tool. And I'm going to drag this lower corner up until it's flush along the edge. So click on this lower corner, and you can see as I drag it, the text will align itself automatically. I'm looking at that line till it lines up nice and even. Come on, right there. Make sense? Pretty cool? Mm-hmm. I've reformatted the text box to make it fit. Now I can place it, and it gives me that particular alignment along that edge. That's how I did that. As far as the lines go, that's simply using the line tool and drawing it off at a 45-degree angle. I think I kept it at one point, and then letting it line up for that. So that's simply and easily drawn off for those. You would do the same thing for each one. Place it up at the top, and then draw off a line between those two. The last thing that you're going to need to do is to add the head next to the person. And like I said, we did this using the clipping mask. Let's do this one for Mary. Give yourself a little picture box. Drop in Mary's picture. Game day info. Mary Byrne. Mary Byrne's nose. Of course, we need to resize it. Do y'all remember how to make the clipping mask?
Mhm.
I'm going to let y'all tell me what to do. I'm going to open it with Photoshop. Remember, I opened it from InDesign into Photoshop. You don't want to open these automatically in Photoshop themselves, else you'll have to relink everything. What do I do next?
Well, last time you used the shape tool. I'm assuming this time you used the pen tool.
Pen tool would be best, yeah.
Make sure it's set to path.
Working in path.
And build or trace the outline.
Trace the outline of her. You can do her hair, or I'm just going to make it simple and go along her jawline. There's that.
Then you go to the paths palette.
You do need to open your paths palette. Why is that important?
Because if you don't rename the path, it's not going
Have to rename it. So double click, give it any name. We can even call it path 1. For this particular one, I'm going to ask you to turn this black and white. Easiest thing to do is to go to mode and turn it to grayscale. That'll discard the color information. Now I can save it. I'm going to jump back into InDesign. Not done yet. What do I need to do?
You need to tell it to. I can't remember.
Object. There you go.
Yeah,
Clip and path.
tell it to use the Photoshop.
Use the Photoshop path that you had. And there she is. Floating head right there. Is that funny? Is there something funny about her floating? I cut her hair. Yes, I cut her hair off. If I needed to, I could go back in and redraw it. I was just going quick. And then you can readjust the size as necessary. She looks so happy. Little floating head. Since it is grayscale, if you did want to take it a step farther, remember you can select the image and you can change the fill color to match the blue or to make it whatever, and that'll automatically change the color for that. Or you can keep it black and white. So what you've done, we've created a type table that we're working with. Format the type that's inside of it. Place the predictions. Format the colors and the borders that go with it. You're adding some text boxes, custom text boxes to the top, and also I want you to add game day calls and the Major League logo, and I'll let you design that however you want to design it. As long as everything fits inside of this area, however else you want to format it, I'll leave it up to you. Any questions on this? I know I flew by that really quickly. The number one problem we had from the last class was make sure you're using your type tool to make the selections and edits to your table. If you select it just with a regular selection tool, it's not going to give you the editing capabilities that you so desire. Cool? Okay.